Hey there, my hard-working 404 students. Today I am going to show you a little bit about how to work with text, layers, and masks. What I've got actually on the screen, as you can see, is a very simple, deceptively simple perhaps, ad that I put together for Knob Creek Rye Whiskey. And this is not terribly difficult, but it does take a little bit of time to learn how it's actually put together. It only has 5 layers. If we go down to our layer palette, we see we have a text layer, we have the Knob Creek itself, and then we have 2 additional layers that may be a little bit strange. And then we have this one that says Lorium ipsum blah 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 blah. This is the text we see in the background here. So what I'd like to do here is I'd like to actually show you how this is put together. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start by creating my basic canvas. So what we'll do is we will create a canvas. File, New, and then the canvas. In this case, I've already preset the canvas for 8 by 5 inches, 300 DPI since I'm building this for print. We're going to go with a CMYK color scheme and a transparent background. And there is our canvas. Now, I've already got the raw images that I need right up here. So I've got a group of folks enjoying the whiskey. I actually have a PNG version of the bottle itself, and I've already done a little bit of work with it to cut out the background, but I'll talk about how that works a little bit later on. I didn't want to spend that time doing some basic lassoing and cutting on this, so it's already ready to go. I'll use this one in a second just to show you how to cut some things. So I've basically got the 2 parts that I need here, people enjoying whiskey and the whiskey itself. So let's go ahead and work with what we need. First and foremost, let's bring in the people enjoying whiskey. So I'm just going to bring in this entire picture. I'll click it, hold it, drag it, and then drop it where it needs to be. Now, it's not filling the entire space, so what I'll do is hold Shift to constrain proportions and expand it all the way to the edge. Notice as I do, it only expands in one direction. If I grabbed the other side, it would only expand in this direction. Here's a trick that you might find helpful. If I hold Shift and Alt and then grab the side, it expands from the middle, which can help me when it comes to filling a space. So that looks pretty nice. Now, as in class, we talked about how if you see this large or thick bar around the outside, that means that we are transforming and we need to lock it in. So we want to do that just by hitting Enter or Return on our keyboard, and the large bar goes away. Well, we've got our background now. Easy enough. I'm going to swap these layers. So our background is now our background, and we have a transparent layer over top. Next, let's bring in the Knob Creek bottle. So we grab the Knob Creek bottle, we bring it to our untitled layer, and we drop it off. Okay. Now we can decide where we want to put it. We're covering a couple of people's faces. Now we're still covering this guy's, so we may want to shrink it down a bit. Again, I hold Shift to constrain proportions. We don't want it to be right on the edge of the screen, so we will put it close, about right there, and hit Return to lock it in. Now, again, we want to group our images as much as possible. Great. So let's look at our original. Boom. And the one we're working with, which I will drag the box close to it. Just drag that over here and drop it off. There we go. Now, original and the one we're working with. Or, there it is. Boom, boom, boom. Original, one we're working with. There we go. Okay, so we've got these two next to each other. Let me blow that one up just a bit so it looks similar. Oh, there we go. Okay, now let's talk about building text, because we wanted to build our text here. So I've got small batch for small groups. Now if I were to go down here and find that text, I can see I've got the text here. I can double click the T to select it. Now what is this text? If I look into it, if I highlight it by double clicking the T, or go into it and highlight it, you can see that I've actually got impact, and I've got 51 as my size. If I go into the new one, and let's just say I wanted to create the same thing, what I would do is click the T tool, the type tool, and create a box that I want my text in. Let's just create a nice good sized box. And we would want to select the type of text. I could click the down arrow and go through all my text and decide what I want it to be. But I'm going to go ahead and select impact. I could also select the size if I wanted to, or even the color if I wanted to. Right now it's going to be black. So we say small batch for small groups. Well, that doesn't look quite right, does it? Again, our original and the one we're working on. Well, there we've got a couple of issues. First off, the color is not quite right. In this case, we're using the same color that's on the Knob Creek bottle. And the next one, we've got some size issues we need to work with. Let's work with the color first. Now, whenever you're working with text, one of the things I like to do is I like to use this folder option. This is our character and paragraph panel. This gives us a lot of character options we can work with, including size and leading and tracking and a variety of other things that we can do. It also gives us color control. So what I'm going to do is highlight everything and then click the color control. We'll just move it out of the way right now. As long as this color control is up, I can move into the picture and I can select the color that I want my text to be. In this case, I want it to be the same color as the actual Knob Creek text. So boom, there it is. It's the same color. Now I can hit OK, and I've got text that's the same color as the Knob Creek logo. Alright, that's okay. Now we need to see what we can do as far as resizing some of the text. Well, what we've got in the original is 4 small groups at a significantly smaller size. Now, I can go in and I can take a look at this and say that, okay, in the one that I created earlier, it was 36. Now, you might want to play around with it if you were creating this from scratch. Lord knows I did. But I can click the T right here, and you'll notice how the finger icon pops up. If I click and hold, I can drag to the left or to the right, and you're actually going to be able to see that as I drag, the text gets larger or smaller. Now, notice I didn't return on this, so as I make it smaller, the text wraps here. Well, I want 4 on this next line. An easy way to do that, just backspace to connect this, and then hit return. Now I've got these on 2 different lines. Now I can work with the size with just that. So let's say 4 small groups. And I want it to get as close as I can to lining that text up. That looks pretty good. Let's tweak the box a bit. Now let me draw your attention to something. If I were just to select this text and then try and resize the box, notice what happens to the text. It squishes, it stretches, it does all that. But if I were to double click the T and then I'm working inside the box, now I can stretch the box and resize the box. and it doesn't affect the text, it just affects the text box. Wonderful little tool for you. Now notice this. As I'm working with this text, there's something interesting that's happened here. If I look at the actual way that Knob Creek does what they do, notice how Knob is almost stretched, while Creek seems like it's compressed. If I want to simulate this, what I can do is select the lower text and then go up here and look and see if there's anything that looks like it might be a text compression. Well, there certainly is. Vertical scale. If I squeeze this, reduce this number, notice how it reduces the scale. All right. How does that look? More like what we see down here. Wonderful. But now I'm creating this big space. Well, I need to create, or I need to shrink that as well. This is where we go to leading. Now I can shrink the leading, which brings that text closer together. There we go. Small batch for small groups. Not half bad. Perfect. I've got an issue though with this text. Notice how the text kind of moves into the background. It fades into the background. It's not differentiated enough. Well, in the original, if you'll notice, and I'm going to clear some of this text out in the background here, I've created a very, very subtle shadow behind the text that gives it enough of a differentiation. If I were to turn that effect off by just going down into the layer and then clicking the eye, there's a big difference between with it off versus it on. So let's add that shadow. Right click on the text layer and then click blending options. When I click blending options, I've got a variety of different things I can do, but what I'm looking for in this case is shadow. So I'm going to click that option. There's the shadow. Now I can move into my, as long as I have this shadow option selected just by clicking on it, I can move in and move my shadow around on the screen. Now shadows work best when they're very, very subtle. So we don't want to make them gigantic by increasing the size or the distance. We just want it to be very, very subtle, enough to where it really sets off the text, but not so much to where people really, really notice the shadow. Size makes it sort of feathered, makes it soft. There we go, not bad. About 60% opacity. Hey, how about that? How's it looking? Pretty good. We'll move ours up a little bit to kind of set it off. Okay, we're pretty close now. All right, what else do we have going on in our original? Well, here's where things kind of get fun. So, notice what we've got going on here. I've created this text in the background here. But now I've got layer, text, and then layer, text, and layer. If I were to turn off this top layer, notice how the text goes all the way. I'm going to close this text panel. Notice how the text goes across the screen. Let me show you what's going on with this layer 2. Probably the easiest way of doing this is to drag it off and onto a blank background. I'm going to grab it and notice what it is. It's these folks in our foreground drinking and enjoying their whiskey. So the original photo is this, but what I've done is I've highlighted just the people in the foreground, and then in the original picture, or in this picture, that one, what I've done is I've made them a separate layer. And so that way I can layer the people over the text and create this kind of depth impression. So let's talk about how that works. All right, we go back to this option, or we go back to our project. Now I'm going to turn off everything but the layer we need to work with just by clicking the eyeball. I'm going to select the layer. Now let's go to the quick select tool and select and mask. Now this is a wonderful option that Photoshop gives you. Notice how everything is semi-transparent, and I can adjust the transparency right here. I usually like to set things to where it's about halfway transparent. Now, as I move and click with this tool, the quick select tool right here, notice how things start to become visible. What I'm doing is making a selection. As things become visible, they are starting to become part of what I'm selecting. Now, if I want to be really specific, I can say this is what I want, and then move into the rest of the picture and hold Alt. And let me see if I can make this very apparent to you guys. Hold Alt, and you'll see a minus sign, and click in the background here. Now I'm saying this is what I want, and this is what I don't. So I'm going to zoom back in, and I'm going to continue selecting our people that are enjoying. Oh, I selected too much. Alt, and I get rid of some of that stuff up there at the top. I want to very carefully get his hair. I want to go ahead and get these two folks here. There we go. Nice. Get their hand, get the glass. Very good. And a little bit of this guy's ear. Let's increase our transparency. They look good. Decrease it, make sure we have everything that we need. That looks pretty solid. Okay, when we hit Alt OK, there's our selection. Now, what we have here is our original image and the mask we've created over the top of it. But you'll notice we're missing the background. Well, what happened to the background? Well, we created a mask over the top of it. Well, that's not going to work. So we can do a couple of things. If we were really smart, what we would have done is created a duplicate before we created this layer. Now what I'm going to do is actually just create a duplicate now, and then I'm going to do away with the mask, delete layer mask. There. So now I have a copy that has my individuals. Check it out. Pretty cool, huh? And now I have the background, and we can put anything we want to between it. So for example, if I wanted to do this, and the Knob Creek goes behind them. Easy peasy. But we don't want that. We want text. So let's go ahead and add some text. I'm going to close off our layer, go to text, and cover the entire screen. Now, Adobe projects have something under type or text called lorem ipsum. This is just filler text. If you don't know what to say, this is what you say. And what I do is just go to type and then keep pasting and pasting and pasting and pasting just to fill the screen. And then maybe select everything and choose the color that I want. Do I want white? Yeah, maybe. Maybe I make our Knob Creek come back. I select everything and I choose Knob Creek color. Just like that. All right, there we go. Now, let's work with layers. I turned on all my layers. Boom. And how do we want things to look? So, we have our background. Then we want Lorem Ipsum. We want our masked layer. We want Knob Creek. And then we want our text. Now, there is an issue that we're running into here, which is that the background text seems to get in the way of the foreground text. All I want it to be is kind of an afterthought. These folks are having a conversation. I want it to be something that just basically is, it gives depth to it. How I do this, and by the way, if this was too fast to see, I go down to my text, right-click, blending options, and then what I want to do is just lower the opacity of the text itself. Just keep lowering it, and how about that? There we go. Okay, so now I've got myself a pretty good little ad. I can see a little bit of problems though. For example, right here, notice what's going on. I didn't quite cut things right. Check it out. The text goes a bit over the couch back here. Well, we can fix that. If you'll notice the mask here, it's black and it's white. Masks operate in black and white. If I go to the paintbrush, notice how my colors are black and white. As long as I have the mask selected, those are the only colors I can legitimately use. If I increase the size and I wanted to add, make this go away, what I can do, and I'm going to increase the opacity to 100 on my paintbrush. If I'm adding to the white, notice the white part is the part that is my people. The black part would be the part that I did not select. The white part is the selection, the black part is not in this case. As I paint over that, the text goes away. I'm adding to the mask. Now, the mask looks good. If I wanted to take away from the mask, like for example, I wanted the text to go over the couch, what I could do is switch. Now I'm painting in black, and the text comes back wherever I paint. But I don't want that. I want the text to be gone. I want the text to go behind the couch. So I just paint it behind the couch. And definitely off of his glass. Make sure that that's all good. Yeah, looks nice. And a little bit further off. There we go. Good? Wonderful. And how does it look? Not half bad. Okay, and that's how we have pretty nice little ad for Knob Creek. Okay, so what have we done? We've worked with layers. We've worked with text. We've worked with some pretty advanced or more advanced cutting and layering techniques. It's not a bad place to start. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in class. But this is a good project to start with. Go ahead and find some images like this and practice with masking and adding to and taking away from masks.